Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to get out and show you a little bit on how to use a compass. Before we get into navigating, I'd like to cover the parts of the compass and how the compass works. So to help describe all this a little bit better, I went on to Google, picked out a few images. This first image is of just a plain compass. It's a silver brand. They're pretty good compasses, especially to carry around outside. They are durable and easy to use. The first thing I want to point out is your magnetic needle. Usually on them, the red points north. Inside of this area right here, you have what I like to call the house. And that comes into play a little bit later in when I'm describing how to get somewhere using the degrees and all of that. You have some orientation lines. Then on the outside, you have a direction of travel arrow, which again, this will come into play a little bit later. You have your bezel, and this rotates. And inside the bezel, you have your degrees. On the outside, you have millimeters and inches, which will again come into play later on. To briefly touch on how the compass actually works, the Earth has its magnetic field per se around it. So you have a couple magnetic poles, and for this video, I'll just keep it simple and we'll say your magnetic north pole is where the north arrow goes, which is a little bit separated from the actual axis of rotations. In order to account for that distance between the actual North Pole and the magnetic North Pole, they've created declinations. And if you zoom in, each area has a different declination, and that's to adjust for the magnetic pull of the Earth. Understanding that compasses work off of the magnetic field, it's important when you're trying to travel with them because certain little things can throw it off. For example, if you get close to a magnetic metal, it can throw off the direction that you're going of the compass because it will pull towards that. On my table, it's a glass table. Right now it's pointing towards north. If I get it next to the steel leg of the table, you're going to see that it's going to start pulling towards that. Which that comes into play, especially if you're out hunting. The barrel of your gun, depending on the metal, can actually pull the direction of the arrow off, which will make you go into a different direction while you're traveling. Before you head out into the woods with just a compass, I recommend that you understand how to use a compass with a map as well. When you choose the map of the area that you want to be in, you want to make sure that you understand which type of map that you're using. For example, there's the USGS map, which will show you the declination of the area down in the bottom corner, or the most common and frequently used would be the Gazetteer or the Atlas. Where the Gazetteer is the most commonly used, I'm going to show you the protractor method to help orient the map to magnetic as well as true. And I'll briefly touch on the USGS. I'll pull it up on Google and show you on that. All right, so here's the USGS map. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, like I said, there is the declination. It's hard to see on this one. Then it gives you this north line that you can adjust everything off of instead of using the grid lines. There are two ways to orient your Gazetteer. There's magnetic, and then there's true. First, I'll show you how to orient the Gazetteer to magnetic north. Depending on your compass, it will have north in the bezel, or like on this one, it might have 360 degrees. Each compass is a little bit different. So you want to adjust the bezel so that the arrow lines up with either north or the 360. You want to, on your Gazetteer, line it up with these grid lines. You want to make sure that the straight edge of your compass is on these grid lines. And then adjust your map so that the north arrow points north. And now you are lined up to magnetic north. To orient your map to true north, you first need to know the declination. On your USGS maps, it will show it in the bottom left-hand corner. On your Gazetteer, unfortunately, you need to look it up or already know it. For the area that I'm in, it is 18 degrees to the west. So we move the bezel to the west, and on this compass, we're going to give it the best guess to 18 degrees. If I'm using this Silva, it has it lined up a little bit better. You have smaller notches that you can line it up to. This Silva has been through a little bit, so it's not the best when I'm using it to travel. Once you have it lined up to where you want it to be, again, put it on the grid line of your gazetteer and line it up as straight as you possibly can, and adjust the arrow so that north is in the house. And once you have it set like this, you are now oriented to true north. In order to get your front and back azimuth, again, you'll need to know your declination of the area. For the area that I'm working in, it's going to be 19 degrees to the west. So knowing that, you want to get your compass set up and go 19 degrees to the west, and I'm going to get it as close as I possibly can. Now you're going to need to orient your map to this. Get it lined up. And you want to use any of these grid lines and adjust your map so that your arrow is in what I call the house. Now that it's adjusted, you're going to pick your two known points. So what I'm going to use is the gate of Hirundo Wildlife Refuge to the inside locked gate. So you're going to line these two up as best as you can, and you're going to want a nice sharp pencil. The reason for that is if it's a little bit dull, it can throw off the line, and you might be going just a hair off from the actual front azimuth or back azimuth that you want to be traveling. Get them lined up. And you want to draw your line past each point. Now that you have your line marked where you're going from your known point to your other known point, you're going to readjust the bezel so that the arrow is inside the house. Get that adjusted. Now that that's adjusted, you're going to be pointing in your direction of the front azimuth. So for this, it's going to be 70 degrees. An easy way to get your back azimuth is if it's below 180 degrees. For example, we're at 70 degrees, you're going to add 180 degrees. If it's above 180 degrees, you're going to subtract 180 degrees. So for this example, like I said, your front is 70 degrees. You can add that 180 and you get 250 degrees, or you can spin it completely around and do it in reverse and get your 250 degrees that way. The next step is to find your distance of how far that you need to travel. On the gazetteer, 1 inch equals 2 miles. I already have my compass marked out so that each one of these is 1 inch long. So looking from the gate to the gate, I luck out and I only have to travel 2 miles as the crow flies at 70 degrees. Now to break this down into the practicality of using a pace count to cover this distance, there's 5,280 feet per mile. So in this distance of 2 miles, it's a total of 10,560, which if you use 100 feet per your pace count, you're going to have to do your pace 106 times to cover that distance. So that's a lot of counting, and the best way to do that would be to have some form of hash system, pace beads, something along those lines that you can keep track of that, because that's a very high number to do. Now that we understand how to go this distance and how to get the distance, I'm going to show you how to do a pace count. The first thing to do when you're getting your pace count is measure a known distance. I like to use 100 feet, that way I can convert it into miles, and that makes it easier for me. You want to do it on flat ground, mark a start and an end, and you want to walk naturally. Don't exaggerate your stride, walk how you normally would while traveling. You want to use the same boots that you typically wear if possible. You want to count your paces correctly. Every time the same foot hits the ground, usually your left, count only that foot. For example, left foot hits the ground, 1. Ignore your right foot, left foot hits the ground again, that's number 2. Then you want to do multiple passes, walk the same distance at least 3 times. Average the counts for accuracy. I'm at my first known point. I came up here. It's going to be cold for the next few days, so I decided to bring some feed up for the deer, some minerals as well. Now that I'm at my first known point, I want to get to my next known point. I've pre-done it on the map, and I've gotten the degrees that I need to travel already. I'm going to get my compass set up, and I'll use my pace count. It's a little bit tricky because it's harder in the snow to keep that accurate pace. Like I said before, you do it on flat ground. When you're going through snow or the hills or all that stuff, it's a little bit trickier, but you still have that roundabout roundabout distance that you want to be going. So break out my compass, get it set for the direction that I want to go, and again, you want to try and keep everything off that magnetic declination that you have. My glasses are fogging up a little bit, so I need to get this out. I need to go 245 degrees. So you want to keep, and it's tricky to do it like this, so you want to keep your north arrow inside the house while that you're moving, and you want to head towards that 245. And I don't know if you can see it that well with the GoPro, but we'll give it a shot. With this one, I have the level bubble, so I can tell that it's level. If you don't have that level bubble, you want to try and make sure that you hold it as level as possible. I am going to pick a point that I need to get to. I'm going to try and see if you can do it through this. Aim towards where you want to go, pick a tree, and head towards that tree. In this situation, I'm going to head towards that, I know there's a lot of pines over there, but the very obvious pine sticking straight up in front of us. So I'll grab my stuff. So I am now at that pine. I'm going to do the same thing. Keep it level, get everything situated, pick a destination that I want to go to. Up ahead of me there is a fallen tree, and I'm going to make it to that. All right, so at this point I've made it about 100 feet. I'm going to do the same thing again, get that situated, pick my point, and up ahead there's a birch that kind of bends. I'm going to go towards that. All right, so I'm at my birch. If I keep going straight in this direction, I will get to the camera spot that I want to be at. However, I'm gonna go over here, get to the four-wheeler, and drive myself a little bit further down. Now I'm trying to get to a different camera location. I tried to do it with the map on the four-wheeler and all that, but the GoPro just didn't zoom in that well. So I've opened up Onyx and I'm going to use that. So I have the location and it is just about, zoom in a little bit, see if you can't see this. I'll screen record it regardless. We're looking at probably 98 degrees, and this doesn't include the declination. I'm going to open up the compass, get it situated. We will aim, pick a location, and go for it. We're gonna go up just past that bend. There's a little forked tree. We're gonna head towards that. That's some decent tracks. All right, made it back to the four-wheeler. Time to load up and head on home.